Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Zach and CJ Hunt. What's up?
AKA Silly C.
Oh, AKA I'm out of practice.
Yo, wow.
Yo, dude, I've been out for like a month. We haven't done any podcasts because the podcast studio was closed down, so obviously looks a little bit different. It was getting remodeled. The whole gym was getting remodeled, and we're officially not Pulse Fitness anymore. Well, I guess we're kind of transitioning, but we're becoming Legacy Personal Training. We're almost there. Almost through this. The gym is awesome. It looks so sweet.
It's way cool.
Yeah. If you guys, if you guys are listening and you're not a member, you need to become a member. You at the very least need to come down here and check out the gym because it's probably like the coolest gym on the planet now. Just saying.
Get in while their spots are open.
Yeah. Before we fill up. All right. So let's do our client of the week. So I have a client of the week. I thought about this person 2 weeks ago while we were closed down. We shut down for a week to put in new flooring, and we were running like boot camps in the parking lot. We had hikes, we had stuff going on, and I wanted to give a shout out to Ray Kramer, newer member, joined us while the gym while we were under construction and we were remodeling, and dude showed up to work out in the parking lot. He very easily could have just said, like a lot of our members, like, I'm going to take the week off and then I'll start back up, when you guys have the new place up and running. But he was here, man. He was sweating. He was rowing. He was on the rower in the parking lot, like working hard. And there's also some modifications we have to make and work around some different injuries and things. And he didn't let that stop him, And so that is an indication to me that he's going to be successful. Right. And I've talked about that before on previous episodes of the person that shows up is always the one that's going to be the most successful in the end. So just shout out to Ray and all of our other clients that just, stuck it out and kept coming regardless of the environment and the chaos. So, all right. Legacy Personal Training, guys. We're no longer Pulse Fitness. So wanted to just do a little round robin today and talk about like what we think it means to leave a legacy, right? So when Tim and I were talking about the name, one, legacy is the street is right there, right? So it makes sense. But when we were talking about the name change, we also were talking, pulse seems very physical. It's like you feel your pulse, but you leave a legacy, right? And so there's a lot of power behind that. And I think our industry is very physically focused, especially like on appearance. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? But there's so much more, so much deeper, so much more that comes from being healthy, being fit, challenging your body, and working hard and constantly day in and day out facing challenges and becoming more resilient. Like that translates over into so many other areas of your life. So I wanted to talk about like what it means to leave a legacy and really kind of what we're trying to accomplish big picture here as a training staff now. So who wants to go first?
I'll take it.
CJ's up. He's got his notes. He's like, leave a legacy.
So yeah, leaving a legacy. I like to think of it as making a conscious decision to put a stamp on the future. So you're not thinking about just where you're at right now, but where you're going to be in the future and who you're going to affect with what you do. It can not only be here in the weight room, but it's got to be all throughout your life too. And I think a lot of the things that you learn from, I guess, I like always to take it back to sports because that's what I grew up doing. And there's so many things that I learned from sports that I didn't know I was learning. And now that I'm older, it's stuff that I put into practice. And I made a conscious decision to keep those values and continue what my dad, my parents, my grandparents taught me, and now to pass it on to my next generation, my son. And not only that, other people that are either younger than me or at the same age as me, in setting an example. I think those are the two biggest things. Thinking about people other than yourself and leaving an example.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned sports. Like if you guys have kids and they're not in sports, like you need to get them in sports, right? Because it translates over into so many areas of your life, not just physically, but especially physically, because we can tell when somebody comes in and they're in their 40s, whether they were an athlete when they were younger or not, right? And the ones that weren't are in way worse shape. But when you think of like legacies that people have left, you think a lot of times like the first several people that will come to your mind are athletes, right? Like you think Pat Tillman, right? It was his birthday, I think yesterday or day before or something. Pat Tillman, athlete, right? That's what kind of gave him the I guess fame platform. And then, goes overseas, fights in the military, dies. He left a legacy, right? There are hundreds of thousands of people that run in his honor every spring, right? And that's what we're talking about. So I love that you brought that up, CJ, because that does give you a platform. Now, not everybody's going to have that platform, but we all, are important to the people that love us, our family, our friends. Like we can make an impact and leave an impact on those people. So, Zach, what does it mean to you to leave a legacy?
I would like kind of like a blend, obviously, of what you both just said. I would say it's something that's more like a lasting impact. That's something that like transcends more than just like your like presence, right? Like I feel like you can like affect change on people just like what you're like on a day-to-day basis, or like especially like in our profession, it's very easy. Okay, maybe easy isn't the right word, but like to affect change immediately. But I would say when you're talking about legacy, that's something like even after you like are so far removed from like that person or that situation, like decisions you did or however you like conduct yourself and stuff like that still like impacts people or businesses or whatever it may be in like how they conduct themselves and kind of like their values and things like that, because it's so much more of like a long-term word in the sense, right? Because like if you think of people who like have left a legacy, it's something that even though they're not involved in it in any way, it's still like people partake in whatever it is. So what I thought of when you were talking about Pat Tillman is like in our fitness industry, maybe you don't know it if you're not in it, but like Mike Murphy was a Navy SEAL and he always did a certain workout, and now it's the Murph workout that like millions of people do every single year, not just on like Memorial Day or whatever it may be, but like that's like another perfect example of somebody like he wasn't intending to like leave a legacy, but that's something that just it shows like you don't necessarily have to like chase it, but it's something that you can, if you're doing like the right things, can create a lasting tradition or impact on tons of people.
That's huge. That's so powerful. And you don't have to die to leave a legacy, right? But I mean, but those are the things that we remember because those are incredible people who did incredible things that now have, I mean, I guess their like in these instances, their sacrifice makes their legacy that much more powerful. Yeah. But there are people in our lives that are influencing us that day to day, right? That are making us want to be better, that are positively influencing us. And nobody dies and you don't stand up at their eulogy and be like, man, they were really ripped. Like that's not what you're you're not going to talk about the physical element. You're not gonna be like, yeah, their biceps were really nice, unless you're joking and trying to get a laugh out of the crowd. That's not what we're talking about. And so many of our clients are focused on the physical side of things. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like wanting to look your best is important, right? If you're not taking pride in how you look, then you're probably not taking pride in other areas of your life either. But what we want is that deeper meaning, like we want the workouts, the struggle in the gym, the physical achievements and the mental achievements of overcoming the struggle to influence and spill over into other areas of your life, so that you're happier, so that you have better relationships with people. Your energy levels are high enough for you to go home after work and play with your kids and influence them, right? And if you're miserable as a person because you're overweight and you don't feel good, your energy's in the tank, you're not healthy, like what kind of legacy can you leave?
Not a very good one.
Right.
I mean, I also think like inspiring is another word to use as well. Like it can kind of go along the same lines. You want to try to influence or inspire.
Yeah, and I think parents is a good example, right? Because like you just like try to like raise your kids the best you can, and then your kids grow up and they most often like raise their children with the same type of like values, or at least in the same general principles like that they were raised themselves. So like that's something that like it's like now like to your kid that's just like how you raised them, but like you learned it from somebody before you and they probably learned it from somebody before them. So that would be like leaving like a legacy without knowing it. That's just something that has like been passed down and was imparted from like 5 generations before you.
With that, I mean, it's kind of with my grandma, she was a teacher. My dad ended up being a teacher, and I'm in a field where you kind of teach, it's more teaching of the body and teaching of how you work out and how, we make the body better, but it still is the same kind of idea. And I never thought I would be doing something like that. And it's just something that was ingrained inside me.
Yeah. You do see that all the time, right? Like you see families kind of follow in the same footsteps and same traditions. Right. And so, it's at some point, we're all going to be gone and people aren't even going to remember us, right? Like maybe it's written in a book somewhere that our great grandchild is like looking, oh yeah, there's this, there's that guy and my great grandfather, but that doesn't mean anything to them. But like you're saying, Zach, we're probably going to have an influence on that person's life, even though we're far removed from ever living at the same time as them. And that's deep, right?
Yeah, so that sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
But that's like that works in the gym, right? Or not just the gym, but
that's
like,
where I was headed.
Right,
so
like,
yeah,
if you impart like healthy things, healthy like movements and traditions and stuff like that, like just activities, like your kid won't notice it, but like they'll learn and mimic what you do anyway. So like if you always come home and I don't want it to come out like sounding bad, like if that's what you currently do, but like if you come home and you are too exhausted and you can't do anything with your kids and you just like leave them be, let them like doing their own thing, and you're kind of just like watching TV and doing whatever you're doing because you just don't have the energy, because you're not like making the correct like decisions for your own health, then like they can break that, but it's way harder because they just learn from what they see. So like that's something that's easily like just passes down from one to the other. And that's why like you do see a lot within the family, they tend to all look the same. You like, right? Like you're from family member to family member. It's pretty, I don't see like one individual who's incredibly in great shape and then everyone else in their family is overweight. It usually doesn't work that way just because we mimic what we see. And especially as a child, like you learn from your parents. So like that's something that's like an unintentional like
legacy,
lesson,
negative legacy that you're leaving.
Yeah. So it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah. And I just, it's less about even, I think the struggle in the gym of saying like, oh, I lifted 5 more pounds, or, I did these extra reps or these extra sets. Like, yeah, that's important. But it's more about the discipline of showing up and being consistent, right? And so kind of same thing is like if you're constantly this person that starts and stops, right? And you yo-yo or you fall off and you can't stick with anything long term, then what kind of example does that set for the people in your life? Right. And it'll come up sometimes in conversations with prospective members where they're on the fence about like, should I do this program? Should I not do this program? And a lot of times they think like, what is my spouse going to say? And they have this fear because they've tried so many different things that they're like, if I go home and tell my, husband that it's going to be X amount of money, like, are they going to trust me that I'm going to follow through with this? Or is it going to be a waste of money because I've started and stopped in the past. Right. And so that's a track record that now we've created that perception and it's working against you. Right. And so it's never too late to change that, obviously. And that's what we're here for, is to coach people through that. But if you don't change that, then that really is kind of the legacy that you're leaving. Right. And so it's influencing people, in your life, right? Or influencing how they view you. And that's not ideal, right? They don't care for the person that's 20 pounds overweight, but goes to the gym 4 days a week and shows up and maybe just struggles to clean up their diet. Like, that person goes to the gym 4 days a week, right? Like, that person is nailing that part. There's just this one thing that they can't overcome. And you have more respect for that person, which is, I guess, just, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, and they're on the right path then, at least. Like, I feel like 90% of it is just showing up and doing it, because the hardest part is getting yourself there. Once you are there, even if it's not in the gym, like, what if it's something that you're like, you don't have the energy to do or the motivation or whatever it may be, like, if you can just force yourself to go a couple times, then it's like, as long as you can force yourself enough to make it part of your routine, then it doesn't feel like discipline anymore. I think people hear like, do you need the discipline? And it seems like daunting because they know they don't have it. So they're like, oh, I have to do this every single day. I have to like get up and like find the discipline to force myself to do it. Like, you need to do that for the first couple weeks. And then once it's part of your routine, you're just like, okay, at 6 a.m., I get up and I go to the gym, or I make whatever shake or whatever it may be. So it's just like, your kids then, without realizing, if they see like, hey, my dad, he starts something, it gets hard, he quits, like, what do you think they're going to grow up to do? Like, if you can like just show that like, hey, like, yeah, if we start something, like, you're going to finish it, like, you signed up for it, you're going to do it. That's something that like is so like inherently just learned and passed on immediately, that just show up. Consistency is like 95% of the whole thing. Like, if you can do it, even if you're not doing it right, you're just doing it because that's the best that you know how, and you're doing it the best you can. Like, as long as you're showing up, like, you're at least setting them down the right path.
You're creating good habits or you're creating bad habits. And it's the same with a legacy. It can be good or it can be bad. And whether you think people are paying attention or not, people are paying attention to you. There's always at least somebody that you're influencing, and you got to decide what you want to do and how you want people to see and what you want to leave behind.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. We want you to leave a positive legacy, right? And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. That's why we're showing up every day as your coaches and giving you our all, because when we influence you to leave a legacy, that's our legacy, right? And that's pretty awesome for us. So don't make our legacy negative by leaving a negative legacy. You guys go out there and crush it and dream bigger, think bigger.
Feel like $1 million, even if your money doesn't match your feels.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.